everybody, and welcome to the Cervena Barva Press reading series. I'm Gloria Mindock, editor and publisher of Cervena Barva Press. Tonight we have some incredible writers I know you'll enjoy, and thank you everyone for coming. And our first reader is Pamela Painter. She is the award-winning author of 5 story collections. Her stories have appeared in numerous journals and in recent anthologies, Flash Fiction America, Best Microfiction of 2023, and Best Small Fictions 2023. She has received 3 Pushcart Prizes, and her work has been staged by Word Theatre in London, New York, and LA. And I give you Pam.
Okay, greetings everyone. Gloria, thank you for inviting me to read, and it's fun to read with Scotty and Francine and to read to all of you. So I am going to start with a story called The Lucky One. After a year of research and with my adopted parents' blessing, I find my birth mother 2 states away. We meet at a dingy coffee shop in a mall abandoned by Sears. She has reluctantly acknowledged that she is my birth mother, those words a sour piece of card candy in her mouth. She is older than I expected and frail, with a missing tooth and dyed red hair she must have tried to match with something she remembered. Her speech is halting. She says she bags groceries at Piggly Wiggly and it's hard on her hands when her arthritis acts up. I came prepared to hate or love her, but I didn't expect to pity her. She doesn't ask me any questions, but supposes I want to ask her about the adoption. She might smell like vodka. She says there is more to the story, that she will introduce me to someone. Can you make day after tomorrow? She says, peering around. Here? I expect the someone to be my father, surprised they are still in touch. I return to my Motel 6 and tell the desk I will be staying a few more days and that the ice machine isn't working. My boss at the showroom is fine with my delayed return. I buy a pint of bourbon and return to the town's diner for its daily special. The next day, my birth mother dies in a freak elevator accident that, due to odd circumstances, makes the local news and a front page story in the town's newspaper. Rather than the elevator victim, the failed elevator gets most of the coverage. There is no obit. The 2 funeral parlors in town don't have any bookings for the elevator victim. The town's morgue sends me to the Pauper's crematorium. They actually say the word pauper. I find the red brick building on a back street beside a car wash and park my rental car off to the side, wondering what to say. Can I say I'm here to see if anyone claims the elevator victim's ashes? It doesn't feel right. I enter the lobby. It turns out I don't have to say a thing. This is when I discover I have a twin sister, a baby my birth mother kept when she gave me away. My twin has the same red hair and pointed eyebrows, the same overbite, but left uncorrected. My twin is holding an urn, a cheap plaster container, and squints at me before slamming through the door. I follow her to blurt out, "Our mother kept you and gave me away." She walks with purpose over to a gangly tree and dumps our mother's ashes at its base, then smears them around with the toe of her purple sneaker. Then she turns to face me, as if to see if I'm going to object. "Yeah, I know who you are," she says. "You were adopted," she says. "You were the lucky one." That afternoon, Vernie and I sit in a booth at the back of the diner. The waitress greets her and stares at me. "Get on with you," Vernie tells her, but not unkindly. The coffee is burned. The special hasn't changed. In the next hour, I hear the story of their 13 moves in 19 years. Our mother was a serial recovering alcoholic, no culinary skills, no father, 3 stepfathers, 1 in jail, no high school diploma. Vernie says, "But last year I got my GED. She has a job at the Piggly Wiggly, just like her mother, but she's head cashier. She says, I'll make manager this coming year." All this compared to my 4-bedroom, 2-bath home, a mother who's a librarian and a father who doesn't drink, prepares people's tax returns, and taught me how to swim. Friends, boyfriends, piano lessons, yearbook editor, college, my job at design research. I hurry over these details of my adopted life. I fish for more details of Vernie's real one, but my twin doesn't have many more. She says her shift begins a Piggly Wiggly in an hour. She says my name, Olivia. Olivia. We write our phone numbers and addresses on paper napkins. Her pointed eyebrows rise to learn that I live 2 states away. We sit a moment longer, perhaps wondering if we can make up for lost twin time. The nosy waitress is nearby filling salt shakers. I put a credit card on the green tab. Vernie rises to leave with someplace to be. Pleased to meet you, she says. Me too, I say. Maybe I'll come back sometime. Not too soon. Sure, she says. She stares at us in the booth's mirror. 2 redheads at lunch. We could be twins, she says, and laughs, then says, it don't make sense. She shrugs and wiggles her fingers at me, nods at the waitress. Then she is out the door. She doesn't cry. I cry. Okay, the next story is called My Honey. For the second time this evening, can you all hear my cat? My cat is yowling. Okay, for the second time this evening, he calls me Honey, this famous author, our dinner guest. My husband pretends not to notice. We became acquainted with this famous author after my husband wrote a favorable review of his recent controversial book, earning his gratitude and his suggestion that he come to our home to dine. Now, seated nearest him, I pour more Chardonnay into his glass, watering his legendary love for the grape. To his dwindling credit, he brought 2 superb bottles of Chardonnay, and he clearly intended them to be shared with him this very evening. I loathe the word shared. Lately, our 17-year-old daughter has been sharing too many of her strong opinions with us. Tonight's opinion was just how late she could stay out with the car. She says it's her freckles that keep me thinking she's a child. Hawk has circled around to other authors' waning reputations and their latest books. He assures me that he tends to read mine. When he calls me Honey for the 4th time, I put both hands flat on the table, a gesture my husband for some reason finds enormously sensual, and I lean forward to our guest. Please, I say politely, please do not call me Honey. My husband clears his throat as our guest rolls right over what I said, as if I too merely cleared my throat. More wine slides down, and soon my nervous husband suggests we move to the living room with glasses and sit by the fire to counter the chill in the air. This is where the famous author calls me Honey once again. At this point, I drop the famous from my thinking. Perhaps if I'd been seated across the room, or petting a cat on my lap, or stirring up the fire, anything but sitting next to this man, I would not have thrown my glass of wine at him. Thrown is not quite accurate. It just sounds more dramatic. But what I did was lift my glass, gracefully turn my wrist, and douse his head with his very good Chardonnay. Douse. He is very wet. The author sits up, straight, blinks, droplets fly. My husband appears with a towel and the famous author's jacket. God damn, the author murmurs from behind the towel. My husband, holding out the author's jacket, apologizes profusely for my bad behavior and he said he imagines that the author would indeed like to take his leave. The author shakes his head, his hair still weeping wine, and looks thoughtfully at me. He says, no, I'll have a double scotch. Can the evening move on from here? Well, somehow it does, and my daughter is only an hour late with the car. She's read the famous author's books and joins us in the living room, where she introduces herself and sits across from us on the parson's bench. Her jeans have holes at the knees. Clearly, she suspects I won't make a scene about her late arrival in front of a guest, and she is right. 1 scene per evening is what I allow myself. Now the famous author is famous again because my daughter thinks he is. He is also enjoying his double scotch as he asks her about college applications and her favorite authors. He is openly gratified that she has read his book, and then I hear it. My husband hears it. My daughter hears it too. He called her honey. Slowly, my daughter leans forward, arms on her knees, and says, "Whoa, wait a minute, stop right there. Did you just call me honey?" The famous author laughs. "Of course not," he lies. "Heaven forbid." We let him lie. That daughter of mine sits back, arms crossed, and nods. That daughter of mine, with her strong opinions, her tantrums, and her tears, she has real power. That daughter of mine can do anything she wants. That sort of happened. Okay. The next story I'm going to read is called "He Steals Sometimes." We don't think Benny thinks of it as stealing. We're not sure what he thinks. Benny's only 4, and when we tell him he must return Justin's favorite truck, he looks at Grant and me with unblinking eyes. The next morning, Benny and I march together down the snowy sidewalks, and he hands over the truck to a tearful Justin. Clearly, Justin's mother has registered that it is the 3rd item we have returned. When she suggests that perhaps their playdate should be put on hold, Benny's eyes tear up, Justin's too, and she relents. Next, her car keys attached to a silver whistle go missing. When I arrive to bring Benny home, she suggests indelicately that perhaps they made their way to our house. Her car, dusted with snow, sits idle in the driveway. Actually, she says 2 sets of keys are missing, the first a few weeks ago. She describes how their whistles are sirens for dangerous situations. She says, "I think we'll skip the play dates for a while." The boys are making snowballs when I call to Benny that we're going home. Benny hugs Justin goodbye more forcefully than usual. Their entwined puffer parkas look like candies that have melted together. That night, after Benny is tucked into bed, his face innocent in sleep, I tell Grant about Donna's keys. "Donna's keys," he says, as if accepting their fate. I enumerate the stolen items: Justin's fuzzy ball, his action figure with a missing arm. Grant surprises me with, "And the truck." We are finishing a bottle of wine in the living room. I look around as if the keys might be in plain sight on the coffee table or beside the TV. I remark that a search has never seemed necessary before. I never searched for my missing friendship ring. Grant shrugs, but we begin. After a short time, I find the keys with the silver whistle in the cat's bed, but not the second set. "This is serious," I say to Grant. "This is stealing." "He's just a kid," Grant says. He blows the whistle and a siren sound builds and peaks. "These keys with their whistle are pretty enticing," he says. The next morning, Benny whines that he wants a whistle just like the silver one attached to the car keys I hold in my hand. I tell him the keys do not belong to us. We put on our winter gear again. "Really?" Donna says as I hand over the keys through the doorway. She has propped the door open with her hip, letting the cold air in, but not us. Benny waves to Justin, who is standing behind Donna. He doesn't wave back, and we are not invited into play or visit over coffee. That afternoon, I decide to talk to Benny about stealing. I sit across from Benny in a small chair at his child's table and look for something that he loves. I choose an action figure in a glossy brown armor whose actions I suspect I would find revolting. Dramatically, I scoop it up and tuck it in my pocket. Benny reaches for it, but I stand up and shake my head no. Benny's eyes tear up. "This is called stealing," I say, patting my pocket. "I've taken something that is yours, just like you took Jason's truck." I don't include the keys. "You are stealing?" he asks. I harden my heart and don't give the action figure back until that evening when Benny wails to Grant that I stealed his man. Grant handles the tenses and use of steal and stole and stolen. Magnanimously, I give it back. Benny misses Justin. I miss my coffee chats with Donna. Kindergarten begins. 2 weeks later, a note asks if it is possible that Benny might have brought home this small oblong clay label for the hamster's house. Possible is probable. I do a search in the obvious places. There's an earring I thought I'd lost in the cat's bed, and a missing monkey ring underneath Benny's mattress, but no clay label. Benny likes to play in Grant's study. As I stand in the doorway and look around, an unexpected foreboding washes over me. I don't find the clay label in any obvious places, behind books under a cushion, in a dish of paper clips. I turn, uneasily surveying the room. What made me look in a place surely Benny could not reach, under something Benny could not lift? There, high on a shelf, under a bronze globe, inside a fake book titled Exit from Home, I find my missing friendship ring from a high school friend who died in college, my father's prized military medal, a tiny gold locket my mother lamented losing because it held the only likeness of her mother, my grandfather. And I also find Donna's second set of keys with a silver whistle. Donna had demonstrated how the whistle sounded like a siren, a call for help. Desperate, I put the whistle to my lips and blow a rising anguish note. I'm in Grant's study, and now I must decide whether or not to put it back. Thank you. Do I have time for a 2-minute one? How am I doing? Okay, this one I'm working on, so any help would be, welcome. Fiction Workshop 1001. A's stories have no plot. B's stories present no conflict. C's stories are all sex and vegetables. D's stories are all hurricanes and UFOs. E's stories kill off every character. F's characters are dragons, wizards, robots, or zombies. G's characters are all talking cats and swearing dogs. H's stories have no dialogue. I's dialogue is all fucks. J's unhinged stories have no scenes. K's story overused white space. L's stories dispense with similes and metaphors. M's stories eschew details like rain and snow and mud and spit. N's stories squat in the future. O's stories are mired in the shady wisdom of the past. P's stories are one big stupid joke. Q's stories are all snark. R's stories are awash in sorrow. S's stories are only one sentence. T's stories leak into weak novellas. U's stories have no end. V's stories are only titles. W's stories are feeble, meager dribbles. X's stories are bloated, overfed drabbles. Y's hermit crab stories are missing the hermit. Z's hermit crab stories are missing the crab. But wait, I forgot. This is a flash fiction workshop. If it works, anything goes. Thank you all.
Thank you, Pam. I love that, and I loved what you read. So next, Jeff Friedman will be reading for Robert Scatolaro due to his vision challenges. And let me tell you a little bit about Robert. He is the author of 7 flash fiction collections and numerous poetry chapbooks. He has, along with James Thomas, co-edited New Micro Exceptionally Short Fiction published by W.W. Norton. His work has appeared widely and included in Norton's Flash Fiction International and Flash Fiction America, and in 4 Best Small Fictions and 2 Best Microfiction Award anthologies. And you can check out his website at www.robertscatolaro.com. And so now I'll give it away to Jeff.
Well, thank you for Robert, and it's a pleasure to read for him. I enjoy reading. This is not the first time I've read his work. Whenever anybody says Norton, it's funny. I always immediately, Norton as a publishing company has been with me since I was an undergraduate, because they were going around. But I think of actually Ed Norton and the Honeymooners. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Like Ed Norton has all of a sudden become a publisher, And I was wondering what kind of work he would publish. But anyway, so it's a pleasure to read a read with Pam. Just did a beautiful reading, and I'm looking so forward to hearing Francine as well. This is a Norton anthology, and this is the first piece I'm going to read is Funhouse from Flash Fiction International, very short stories from around the world. And it's called Funhouse. She'd gotten the Funhouse mirrors at an auction and had them put up in the spare bedroom. He found them strange, even a little disturbing, and thought to buy extravagant with the kids away at college and the big tuition bucks spilling out. But she'd insisted on a well-deserved splurge. After all, that's straight and narrow, a side of her new to him. So he went along, even following her one night with a bottle of Marquis de Riscal into that room with the lights dimmed and candles she placed on both dressers, adding to the mix. In bed, she began taking off her clothes, then his. No way, he said, draining the last of the wine, gazing into one of the mirrors overhead at their stretched out, undulating forms, fleshy waves of them in the sheets. He started to sit up, but she pulled him back. This is weird, Connie, he said. She reached out a zigzaggy hand and ran it down his zigzaggy middle. Looking left, she was squat and condensed. Her cheeks bulged as if she had two apples stuffed in her mouth, her breasts large, wobbly globes. She guided his hand to them. In another, the two of them were amoeboid, transforming silvery strangers. You've got to be kidding me, he said. She smiled, and at a glance, it was an astonishingly wide curl, liquid as mercury. He continued, shifting his vision. My God, he said. What, she answered. The size of that thing. She leaned over and whispered something, a name, he thought, not his own. Perhaps an endearment. She shook out her hair, jagged bolts against his chest. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them, she was wriggly and rosy, a stick figure, a block, a fleshy smear, strange and elegant. He heard some low, guttural sounds, his own. She bit his shoulder, and he pulled her close. His eyes banged against each corner of their sockets. The room was cluttered. It was ablaze with candlelight, squat, fiery balls, elongated licks of light, and all their odd and flagrant infidelities in every piece of glass. Terrific ending, by the way. So the next one, I'm going to read two pieces from Bad Motel, and these are 100-word stories. Start out with the title story, Bad Motel. The cab driver's eyes in the rear view mirror as our lips parted, lowering when my eyes were at it. Too much to drink. The motel ceiling fan spinning the scarf you tossed up there. It was red and green, and it wasn't even Christmas. Just felt that way. Watching TV after. A politician. A lot of double talk. You shook your head, said, what does it matter if the devil paints his kitchen white? On the way back, you told me your husband's hands were softer than my own. In the light rain, our taxi veered around a mattress in the road. The next one is called Sewn In. Outside the diner, it was raining. Periodically, a truck's air brakes would add its hiss to the mix. The trip had been tough. Talk, cracked as some of those roads. There were miles yet. Rain shadows ran down that dress you got in Mexico. Little mirror pieces sewn in. You said, we are all prisoners of our own momentum. I passed the salt, didn't know what else to do. The waitress poured coffee like she invented it, had a wet rag that did little more than reconfigure the table grease. When she flipped her pad page over, we looked up. It's kind of fun going through all his books and picking a couple, this whole wide selection of beautiful writing, I certainly, I mean, I was working with Robert a little bit to pick some out. I had my own set of favorites I wanted to add, but I tried to let him get his way on some things. Let's see. So this is in God in a Can, and this came out with Bamboo Dart Press, which is an imprint of Pelicanesis. Mark Givens is the editor of that press, and he's quite a wonderful editor. And this is a really wonderful book too. Okay, Sumo Wrestlers Heating Service. Just a note, and it's obvious at the end, but just in case I'm going to try to designate it, it ends with 2 haiku. So just you'll see that when it gets to the end. Sumo Wrestlers Heating Service. In the bitterest winters, their phones are ringing off the hook. The chill, ripe goosebumps rising as the north wind hurls its weight around. Lost chill, winter-bitten widows, all frosted by life, by weather, by life's weather. The calls come in. The sumo wrestlers arrive in pairs at night, their enormous heft through a doorway, nearly an osmosis, heating up the room at a glance. The sight of them. A king-size bed is required. There is an elaborate tea ceremony. They remove their clothes with a ritualistic poetry, an origami master's art for folding, till they are in full and ample bulk, left in only their mawashi. They ease under the covers ironically, like a whisper with only a small bed spring's complaint, positioning themselves a belly-pointing sandwich of heat and comfort, bookending a client but not touching, an onion skin paper-thin margin between, the chills of winter withering for a time. In the dark, a sweet song of Mount Fuji and the flapping of cranes overhead, of lovers outside a red pagoda, and then later alternating, first one reciting a haiku softly in broken English, and then the other to oohs and ahs in the dark. The summer moon, there are a lot of paper lanterns on the street. And then as the cold wind falters against the window glass like an incompetent would-be intruder, the butterfly, perfuming its wings, fans the orchid. Let's see. Ooh, I jumped too quickly on that one. God in a Can, the title piece. It's 35. Oh yeah, I really love this one. God in a Can. I pick up some God in a Can spray at the specialty shop. Costs plenty. First thing I spray are the dirty dishes, which suddenly sparkle, greaseless in a tidy pile. My sickly old cat is next. It springs up from slumber and bats a grape back and forth, skittering across the kitchen floor. She's a wind-up toy of vigor which never tires. I spray the phone and my ex immediately calls, tells me she just got out of the shower and was thinking of me. Make it quick, she says. I spray my old heap and drive the Rolls Royce to her place. At a stoplight, a homeless man runs up with a wet rag and a squeegee to clean my windshield. I spray him and he thanks me right before a crackling bolt shoots out of the can, reducing him to a small, smoldering heap. And then I remember the warning label, handle with care. Contents may be mercurial. It is twilight, and a few water drops left on the windshield from earlier become rubies from the brake lights of the caddy in front of me. The can is on my lap. I shake it. It's low. I hope like hell there'll be enough mercy left in it for the long ride home. And last from God in a Can, Mime with a Gun. A mime breaks into our house. He has a gun. We are watching TV in bed, and my wife screams, pulls the blankets up to her chin. He turns up the set, puts a finger to his lips. We stare at him in silence. He's wearing a spandex outfit, and his face is painted geisha white with a red star on either cheek. He approaches us as if pushed back in a windstorm, struggling to advance. He does it so well, I nearly get the impression his hair is blown back. If we weren't so terrified, we might applaud. He does the trapped in the box routine and drops his gun to the rug. When I move to the edge of the bed, he picks it back up quickly, wags a finger at me. I shrug, afraid to speak, suddenly in a land where visuals trump all sound. He slips the gun into his armpit and points to his ring finger, then runs his hands down either side of his neck, coming together in the shape of a V. Necklace, my wife says, suddenly, playing charades with him. He nods. You want to steal our jewelry, I add? He nods again and smiles. I sit up and put my hands over my head and cringe, as if the ceiling were falling down upon me. I rub my head, creating the shape of a bump rising up. I scrunch up my face in pain. He watches, making a sad puppy dog expression. I count out imaginary dollar bills into the covers, then do a poof pantomime with my hands, fanning them and letting them fly up as if exploding into nothingness. I run my fingers down my cheeks, a flood of tears. He puts his hands to his head in an oh my God gesture, and his face does a rubbery, crestfallen collapse into empathy. He takes the gun from his armpit and puts it into a spandex pocket where you could see every detail, turns and walks toward the door in slow motion. He's really good. He does an electric shot bit when he touches the doorknob, then waves over his shoulder as he exits. I hear a window slam shut in the kitchen downstairs and a car speed off. I get up and hurry to the closet, grab my baseball bat and put it by the bed. You never know when a wayward juggler or a clown gone bad might be casing the neighborhood. Thanks. I'll clap that for that one too. I'll clap for that one. Let's see. So we're moving to a different book, what we know so far, and do a piece called Interpreter of Dreams. And I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this one is autobiographical, basically based on his mother. And mother did this, and it's a quite wonderful piece. Actually, I was thinking, there's a Sam Cooke song where Lou Rawls comes in at the end with his great big booming voice, and he goes, yeah, yeah. And maybe Michael, after I read a number of words, you could come in and go, yeah, with your great big booming voice. So, okay. Interpreter of Dreams. My mother was the self-appointed interpreter of dreams, coughing out her verdicts with an early morning smoke, mining her slumber for forecasts. Silverware meant guests were coming, hands a gift. Bees represented bad luck, especially if they were swarming, and teeth, the one we dreaded most, meant certain death. And it didn't matter whose, a family member, a neighbor, even old movie stars counted, were not safe. And we wait for the axe to fall. And of course, it always did. And she'd say, see? The Rosetta Stone she carried in her head, infallible back then. As we listened with our spoons frozen over cold bowls of cereal, she, in her robe, with her coffee and her cigarettes, and the fate of the world in her hands.
Yeah, yeah.
Good. I love that. Great way to come in. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Now, the next one, we're going to jam. We're going to get like the Grateful Dead, and everybody's going to play a note. Robert, I think you would like that. You would go for the Grateful Dead, I believe, in this. Okay. Well, we're going to do this is from Ways to Read the World, which was published by Scantic Books. It's a book of triptychs. So this is a triptych, and this one's called Chickens in the Parlor. And each section's got a title. The first section is titled Moat in lieu of a welcome mat. When my mother felt her life had become drab and spark smothered, her lipsticks became redder and redder, and she built a moat around the house. Each day when my father came home from scrubbing graffiti off subway station walls, he'd swim through a clinging storm of mosquitoes to get to the front door with one hand paddling, the other holding his bottle of whiskey above the brine. Old MacDonald. Mother sprinkled feed on the rug for the chickens in the parlor, what she called that tiny room with a convertible sofa in it. The chickens hopped up onto the furniture, knocking things over. I was young and didn't mind their ceaseless pecking. My father found a burial plot inside the newspaper and started digging, so he never noticed the new dress Mother was wearing or the candy apple red high heels. This is what you get when you act like old MacDonald, Mother said, sweeping her arms broadly and causing a few chickens to flutter feckless wings. E-I-E-I-O, she said. Steam screen. Mother rid the house of chickens, and Dad learned to cha-cha-cha. It's strange to think how old they seemed then, how young they really were. They were in the kitchen dancing when the teapot started screaming. Father turned, but Mother said, leave it. That she didn't want to stop for a single moment, that those red high heels were out of their coma. She was wearing a flared sundress, and Father had on his gray razor-creased trousers with high cuffs. I found a quarter once in one of those cuffs as they draped over a chair. It was an archaeological high point. Father seemed to like the way that dress bell-shaped as she twirled, and the feel of it. The tea kettle, not so much. A record skipped on the turntable, was stuck in a brassy, repetitious snippet over and over. Father turned again, sweating at that point. Leave it, Mother said. Thank you very much for Robert.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Did a great job. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, for reading, and Robert, your work, hearing it was just wonderful. And our next reader, Francine Witt, is the author of 10 books of poetry and flash fiction. Her flash fiction collection, Radio Water, is forthcoming from Roadside Press in January 2024. Her poetry collection, Some Distant Pin of Light, is forthcoming from Cervena Barva Press, and that'll be in the summer of 2024. She is flash fiction editor of Flash Boulevard and South Florida Poetry Journal, and you can also visit her website at francinewitt.com. And I give you Francine.
Thank you so much, Glo, and just a joy to read with Scotty and Pam. Just really an honor. So I'm gonna read a couple of road trip stories because it occurred to me that I have a lot of road trip stories. So I figured I'd take you on a little road trip with me. And so I put this background here. So we're not in the town of Shutterstock. It's just I just didn't feel like buying it. And also the nice thing about having a little screen back there, like if it looks like my hair is moving, it looks like I'm on the road. Okay, so, let's just pretend. All right. On the way to our summer place. None of us wanted to get there. My father and mother in the back seat, us kids were thinking of ways to slow it down. My sister, little Peg, said, "Ooh, let's count the gas stations." But of course, most of them were gone after the bomb hit. "Let's count trees," my brother, little Martin, said. He was thinking, of course, of the lone tree back in our lawn, the one where the dog growled the cat into the branches that were leafless even into June. "Shh," my mother told him. "There are no more trees, remember?" "Oh, yeah," little Martin said, holding his right up to the window, fingers spread out like an oak. "We should turn around, go home," Mother said to my father. "You know how silly this all is." My other sister, tiny Betty, squished between her elbows. She kept saying, I wish, I wish, I wish our summer place will still be there. The empty highway, the other cars we couldn't hear anymore. This is another family road trip 1958. The father doesn't know where he's going. He tells the mother to pull the map out of the glove compartment. Two little girls in the back seat. I want ice cream, the smaller one says. She is only 3, but already a princess. This is how she will be the rest of her life. The rest of her life, all of their lives, as it turns out, is only 10 minutes. The older girl is looking out the window. Tree, license plate, then dark clouds above, clouds that are fistfuls of rain about to let go. The mother unfolds the map. It's been folded wrong. That is, not following the grooves that are part of the design pattern. This is just a mess, the mother says. The father thinks she's talking about more than the map. Outside, the sky above the highway in the middle of wherever is starting to darken. The road is unusually open and empty for an August Tuesday. The mother looks close at the map and says they missed the exit and they will have to get off at the next one and turn back. She folds the map up properly and puts it back in the glove compartment. The younger daughter starts to cry again about ice cream, and the mother fishes a Tootsie Roll out of her pocketbook. The younger daughter grabs it from the mother's hand the way she grabbed her own life. Surprised baby that she was. The baby that would fix things, the mother finally hoped. Instead of what did happen, which was to drive the father even farther into himself, into late nights at the office in strange perfume. I better get gas, the father says. He looks at the gas gauge, almost on empty, almost too late. The older daughter is the one who sees the truck coming wrong way out of nowhere. It is a giant whale smile of grill and headlights. It is huge and holds the entire future for them, seconds really, and she doesn't even have time to warn her father, who is looking down at the radio, snapping on some music to cheer them up, Elvis or something, or the mother who is looking for another piece of candy to give to her unwanted daughter, anything to fill her up, or the unwanted younger daughter herself, whose mouth is open, really open, either waiting to take a bite of Tootsie Roll or else about to scream. Okay, this next one I wrote in a workshop with Pam Painter. She her great prompt of writing a road trip story. So this is what I came up with. Just another road trip story. Throw in a woman, throw in a man, throw in a broke down Chevy, throw in a body in the trunk, throw in a gas station, bramble and brush, hopper pumps and rattlesnake shiver. Throw in the hot armpit sun. Throw in the woman's husband, who of course is in the trunk. Throw in the way you eyed the DoorDash guy. No, that's another story. Throw in Arizona. A road trip story is always Arizona, desert and plump of dune in the background, the man, the woman, the husband in the trunk pulling into the gas station. Throw in a lonely pop machine where only a quarter will roll out a Coke as crisp and cold as movie Christmas. Throw in the gas station attendant about to open the trunk. I'm going to check the spare for air, he probably says. Throw in the way your husband doesn't look at you anymore, not with anything close to desire. Throw in how you kind of sort of understand the woman in the road trip story and whatever she did to put her husband in the trunk. Throw in the man throwing his meat fist on the trunk. Thanks anyway, old man, we just need gas. Throw in the smell of rotting corpse working into the Arizona air. Throw in how your husband goes corpse when you tell him your life is a desert and his love would be like water. Throw in the gas station attendant going fisheye with suspicion. Throw in how he sidles inside and rings up the sheriff. Throw in a shootout at the end of the road. Throw in your refrigerator, Dune in the background. Throw in no one there to check if anything needs air. Throw in you just sitting there with no idea how this story will end. Thank you. And thank you. And this story is on a bus. Takes place on a bus, but a road trip, well, kind of a road trip. Rumble. On the bus to her mother's funeral, and Maisie forgot to bring money. No point to turn back now. And Maisie has no credit and no friends to text for cash. Her mother, turns out, died from alcohol poisoning. No surprise. Stepfather Dave called with the news and said he'd pay for the bus ticket, and all she had to do was pick it up. Said he'd be waiting for her at the station. Maisie only met Stepfather Dave that one time. She was 18 and succulent. He offered her a Coke, and Maisie could swear he slipped something in it. She told him she wasn't thirsty. The bus is rolling through Ohio, and it all seems postcard now. 10 years the hell away from here, and it's been nothing but server jobs, a beady boyfriend or two, and yeah, succulent isn't her anymore. The man sitting next to her is sweaty and suited and eating a sandwich, ham with lettuce from the looks of it, toasty and warm from the smell of it. He picked it up at the rest stop 10 miles back. The hole in Maisie's stomach widening like the Ohio countryside. Maisie's wallet back home on the nightstand, plump with her last $200, and Jack, the guy she left in her apartment, will find the cash and use it to drink a hole into the universe. An hour later, the bus pulls into the last stop, her stop. The screech of brakes, the bus lowering into a hiss. The driver gets out and starts pulling suitcases out of the bus belly. Stepfather Dave is waiting, leaned up against the dead river green of his station wagon. He is scanning the people getting off the bus, one by one. His face goes off like a light bulb about to blow when he sees Maisie, waves her over. She gets in the car, the suitcase in front of her, scrunching up her legs. Stepfather Dave says, "You look good. The city pudged you up a touch, but I like it." The tiny rumble of her stomach, the engine starting up. He offers her a Coke, this time with the cap still on. She takes it and unscrews it. He digs in his pocket and says, "All I got is this chocolate bar." His eyes go from the road to her thighs and back again. Outside, the pure empty of everything all around them, in front of them, and when he unwraps the candy bar with a single expert motion, she takes it. And the last story, thank you. Hope you're not getting car sick. Cross country. And this is in sections, so I'll pause for like a couple of seconds. Cross country. An hour into our cross-country car ride, I realize I hate Harry. I look at his sockless feet in the brown leather loafers, a smug look that stretches all the way up to his face. Near Philly, I tell Harry I need to pee. "You always need to pee," he says. And that's true. Peeing is like smoking for me, a way to get myself out of the world for 2 minutes. I've been holding it in since New York. Harry exhales, his breath smugging up the air. He turns off at the next exit. "Too late," I tell him, my favorite undies soaked against the seat. Okay, this is out of sequence, but important. It's 5 days later, outside Arizona. I have, by now, murdered Harry. Stuffed him in the trunk under his duffel. We were going to hike the Grand Canyon. The duffel is bulging with hiking gear. Right now, it's holding Harry down like a paperweight. Back to now. Harry is arguing with the GPS. "You drive us into a lake, you nitwit." "Good one, Harry," I say. Usually, I admire his pluck with electronics, how he yells at his fitness tracker for not counting enough steps, how he yells at his blender, stop, it's already a smoothie. But today, everything's bothering me about Harry. Days later, we stop for lunch in Kansas or Missouri or Kansas. The waitress is young, and Harry is looking at her up and down. Eyes on the menu, I finally say. Don't you have to pee? He asks. And I do, like crazy, only there's no way I'm leaving the table. I pee right there on the vinyl seat. Harry looks shocked. The waitress looks shocked. I'll have the eggs, I simply say. In Colorado, we find one of those stops where truckers take showers. I tell the guy at the counter I'm having woman troubles. He nods and says his mother has that and warns that we don't get many women, so it might be a little rough in there. I tell him I've seen rough. I look at Harry. I'll be fine, I say. Back in the car, I notice lipstick on Harry's collar. I wish he wasn't such a cliche. It must have happened while I was in the shower, while I was trying not to notice the girly pictures slapped all over the walls. Harry must have found something in the hooker aisle and taken it out back. Whatever it was wore blood red lipstick. I tell Harry we need to find a hardware store. We find one in Utah. I tell Harry if we're hiking, we're going to need to build a fire. Good thinking, he says. I walk over to the axe aisle and pick out a small one. I run the blade along his fingers. I run the blade along his neck. Let's get you some hiking socks, I say. We go to the counter. He motions to the restroom. Go now, he says. You know how you can get. Don't worry, I tell him. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Francine. That was great. And what a wonderful night. Can we give everyone a hand of applause again that read?